Welcome to this exploration of feelings, inspired by MJ Barker's insightful writings. In this video, we'll journey through the landscape of human emotions, how we experience them, how we sometimes shut them down, and practical ways to sit with and understand them. Whether you're curious about happiness, anger, sadness, or the value of noticing your feelings, this series will guide you through both personal and social perspectives. Let's begin by setting the stage for a compassionate, open-minded look at what it means to be with our feelings and why this matters for our well-being and relationships. Jay Barker's work on feelings spans over a decade, reflecting both personal growth and profound shifts in the world. As you watch, keep in mind that our understanding of emotions is always evolving. The context in which we learn about feelings, culturally and individually, shapes how we relate to them. This video draws from essays written at different times, offering a unique perspective on how ideas about emotions can change and deepen over the years. Let's appreciate this journey of growth and the value of revisiting our beliefs about feelings. One powerful way to understand our emotions is through stories and metaphors. MJ Barker describes how the movie Inside Out beautifully illustrates the complexity of our inner world. The film follows Riley, an 11-year-old, and her emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust, as she navigates a big life change. The message is clear: we need all our emotions, not just the positive ones. When we suppress or ignore certain feelings, we risk losing touch with our full emotional range. Let's explore why embracing every emotion is essential for a balanced, healthy life. Van Dusen's Compass of Emotions offers a helpful way to visualize our feelings. Imagine emotions on a wheel, where we move through joy, pride, anger, fear, sadness, envy, hope, and back to joy. The key insight is that we need to experience all emotions to keep moving. If we avoid or shut down certain feelings, we can get stuck, unable to access the full spectrum of our emotional life. This concept helps us see that sadness and joy, anger and hope can coexist and even enrich each other. Life rarely presents us with pure single emotions. Often we feel joy and sadness at the same time, or anger mixed with hope. Inside Out shows that these mixed feelings can create some of our most meaningful memories. Rather than striving for emotional purity, we can learn to appreciate the richness that comes from experiencing complex, layered emotions. This approach allows us to be more compassionate with ourselves and others, recognizing that our feelings are rarely simple. Many of us learn early on that certain emotions are not acceptable to express or even to feel. Culture, community, and family all send messages about which feelings are okay, and which are not. For example, some cultures value happiness and discourage fear or sadness. Gender, age, and social roles also influence which emotions we're allowed to show. These pressures can lead us to suppress parts of ourselves, sometimes with lasting consequences for our mental health and relationship. Pressing emotions doesn't make them disappear. It often makes them stronger or causes them to show up in unexpected ways. When we try to be only joyful or strong, we may end up feeling anxious, angry, or disconnected. Over time, this can lead to a sense of numbness or even depression as we lose access to the full range of our feelings. The key is to recognize and value all emotions, even the ones that feel uncomfortable or difficult. Closest relationships, family and friends, teach us a lot about which emotions are acceptable. Sometimes even well-meaning parents or loved ones encourage us to hide our struggles and present a happy face. This can make it hard to be honest about our feelings, both with ourselves and others. Over time, we may develop habits of hiding our pain or pretending to be okay, which can create distance in our relationships and make it harder to ask for support when we need it. What can we do as adults to reconnect with our emotions? Many therapeutic and spiritual traditions recommend sitting with our feelings. One practice called focusing involves paying gentle attention to sensations in the body, like a tight throat or clenched stomach, and welcoming them with curiosity. Instead of trying to fix or change the feeling, we simply notice it, describe it, and listen to what it might be telling us. Over time, this practice can help us become more comfortable with our emotions and learn from them. It's important to remember that emotions aren't just in our minds, they're also in our bodies. Practices like focusing help us tune into physical sensations and learn what our bodies are telling us about our feelings. This approach moves us away from overthinking and helps us reconnect with the wisdom of our bodies. By welcoming each sensation, we can gradually open up lines of communication with our emotions and develop a more integrated sense of self. Sometimes when we start to notice our emotions, we discover that we have feelings about those feelings. For example, we might feel angry at ourselves for being sad or ashamed of our fear. These meta feelings can make it even harder to sit with our emotions. The key is to treat all feelings, even the ones about feelings, with the same gentle curiosity and kindness. Over time, this helps us break the cycle of self-criticism and develop greater self-acceptance. Noticing is the first step in any process of understanding or engaging with our emotions. Before we try to analyze or act on a feeling, it's important to simply notice it. This can be challenging, especially when we're used to rushing into action or overthinking. But by slowing down and observing our feelings, we allow them to settle, like letting the dirt in a glass of water sink to the bottom so the water becomes clear. Only then can we see what's really going on. Faced with difficult emotions, many of us rush to either engage, by reacting or distracting ourselves, or to understand, by analyzing and overthinking. Both approaches can prevent us from truly noticing what we're feeling. Rushing to engage might mean lashing out or burying ourselves in work. Rushing to understand can lead to endless cycles of self-criticism. Slowing down and simply noticing the feeling can help us break these patterns and respond more thoughtfully. Noticing our feelings isn't always easy, especially when they're painful or uncomfortable. Emma Churdren suggests treating difficult emotions as friendly and supportive, rather than fearsome or threatening. This means approaching even our least favorite feelings, like despair or irritation, with curiosity and kindness. By describing their texture, temperature, or color and noticing how they unfold over time, we can start to see them as sensible and helpful, even if we don't yet understand why. Incorporating noticing into our daily lives can be challenging, especially when we're busy or overwhelmed. It can help to start with less difficult emotions or to practice when we're feeling okay. Setting aside a few minutes each day, perhaps with a cup of coffee or during a walk, can make it easier to build this habit. Over time, noticing becomes a natural part of how we relate to our feelings, helping us respond more calmly and compassionately. Noticing doesn't have to be a formal meditation practice. It can happen anywhere, on a train, during a walk, or while listening to music. Some people find that writing or drawing helps them notice and process their feelings. Others use therapy or conversations with friends as a space for noticing. The key is to find what works for you and to approach it with openness and patience. Happiness is a complex and sometimes controversial emotion. In discussions about mental health, happiness is often seen as the ultimate goal. But for many, especially those in marginalized groups, happiness can feel elusive or even unattainable. Social expectations, cultural norms, and experiences of oppression all shape how we experience happiness. It's important to recognize that distress often has social causes, not just individual ones, and that striving for happiness isn't always the answer. Men and LGBTQ+ people often report higher levels of distress and lower levels of happiness, partly due to social pressures and discrimination. When distress is seen only as an individual problem, it can lead to blame or shame. Recognizing the social roots of suffering opens up new ways to address it through community activism and mutual support. Happiness is not just a personal achievement, it's deeply connected to the world around us. Culture often tells us that we should strive for happiness and that there are specific techniques to achieve it, but this can create pressure and even increase suffering, especially for those who don't fit cultural norms. Mindfulness and some philosophical traditions suggest that craving happiness can actually make us less happy. Instead, they encourage us to be present with whatever emotions we're experiencing, rather than privileging happiness above all else. Is a meaningful life the same as a happy one? Sometimes the pursuit of happiness can get in the way of finding meaning. Letting go of the quest for happiness and focusing on welcoming all emotional states can lead to a more meaningful, fulfilling life. Compassion, mutual support, and openness to all feelings may allow happiness to arise naturally, rather than as something we chase. Psychology and sociology have tried to measure happiness, often equating it with certain activities or physiological states. Humanistic psychology links happiness to achieving life goals and finding meaning. Existential perspectives see happiness as accepting life's complexities and being able to let others be themselves. Ultimately, happiness is a multifaceted experience, influenced by chance, meaning, and our relationships with others. There are different kinds of happiness: everyday pleasures like a good cup of coffee, and deeper, meaning-based happiness that comes from living in line with our values. Sometimes these forms of happiness can seem at odds, but they can also support each other. Being open to everyday joys can help us find meaning, and living meaningfully can make it easier to appreciate small pleasures. Access to happiness is not equal. Social norms, material conditions, and cultural expectations all influence who can experience happiness and how. Sometimes, conforming to norms brings a certain kind of happiness, but this can exclude or oppress others. True happiness may involve finding peace with life's contradictions and complexities and working towards a more inclusive, just society. Surveys and statistics try to measure happiness, but these numbers can be misleading. Correlation does not equal causation, and cultural norms influence how people report their feelings. For example, people may say they're satisfied because that's what's expected. It's important to question assumptions about what makes people happy and to recognize the diversity of satisfying lives. In Western culture, there's a strong pressure to be constantly happy and to create perfect experiences. This expectation can make happiness feel impossible, especially when things don't go as planned. Sometimes, letting go of the need for perfection and appreciating things as they are can lead to greater satisfaction and peace. Joy is often seen as a purely positive emotion, but it can be complicated. Sometimes we struggle to allow ourselves to feel joy, especially if we feel guilty or undeserving. In communities that focus on difficult feelings, joy can be overlooked. Yet acknowledging and sharing moments of joy is important for our own well-being and for connecting with others. Joy can invigorate us and inspire collective action. Joy doesn't have to be grand or overwhelming. Often it's found in small, everyday moments: a smile from a stranger, a favorite song, a flower growing through the pavement. Noticing and savoring these micro moments of joy can help us build resilience and find delight even during tough times. Sharing these moments with others can deepen our connections and remind us of the good in life. Queer joy is about more than just feeling good. It's a radical act of embracing all parts of ourselves, especially in a world that often marginalizes LGBTQIA+ people. Queer joy means refusing to go back to normal when normal has never worked for everyone. It involves being honest about pain and struggle, while also making space for light, pride, and solidarity. True queer joy comes from embracing the full rainbow of feelings, not just the positive ones. Just as a rainbow contains many colors, our emotional lives are made up of a full spectrum of feelings: joy, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, surprise, and love. Embracing all these emotions rather than dividing them into good and bad allows us to experience life more fully. This approach is especially important for marginalized communities, where denying or suppressing feelings can be a survival strategy. True joy comes from making room for every shade of emotion. Learning to feel the full range of emotions helps us develop kindness for ourselves and for others. When we repress or react from our feelings, we can hurt ourselves and those around us. By becoming intimate with all our emotions, we gain understanding and compassion, which can help us break cycles of trauma and create more supportive communities. Anger is a valid and vital emotion that helps us hold boundaries and mobilize for justice. The challenge is to be with anger without reacting in ways that harm ourselves or others. Taking time to notice and stay with anger rather than repressing or acting out allows us to use its energy constructively. Anger can be a resource for fighting injustice and protecting ourselves, especially when channeled with compassion. Relationship with anger is shaped by our personal history and social identities. Trauma responses like people-pleasing or fighting can influence how we express or suppress anger. Intersectional factors such as race, gender, and class affect who is allowed to show anger and how it's received. Understanding these dynamics helps us approach anger with more awareness and use it as a tool for empowerment and change. Sadness is often linked to loss and vulnerability. Allowing ourselves to feel and express sadness helps us connect with others and develop compassion. When sadness is suppressed, it can turn into depression or melancholia. Grieving and mourning are important processes that help us process loss and move forward. Being with sadness rather than avoiding it can open us up to deeper relationships and self-understanding. Who gets to feel and express sadness is shaped by culture, gender, and social norms. Some people are discouraged from showing vulnerability, while others may be expected to perform sadness in certain ways. Recognizing these dynamics helps us support each other in feeling and expressing sadness authentically, without shame or judgment. Failure is an inevitable part of life, especially when we take risks and pursue what matters to us. Instead of seeing failure as something to avoid or be ashamed of, we can approach it with honesty and kindness. Failure can teach us about our patterns, open up new possibilities, and deepen our connections with others. Embracing failure means accepting our imperfections and learning from our experiences. Failures in work, home, or relationships can feel overwhelming, but they also offer opportunities for growth. Sometimes failing in one area leads to new paths or deeper self-understanding. Sharing our failures with trusted people can foster intimacy and support. By staying with the feelings that arise from failure, we can develop resilience and compassion for ourselves and others. Regret is a natural response to recognizing harm we've caused or opportunities we've missed. Instead of getting stuck in blame or shame, we can use regret as a prompt for reflection and change. Practicing regret involves noticing our actions, refraining from immediate fixes, taking remedial steps, and resolving to do better. This approach helps us take responsibility without being overwhelmed by guilt. Creating rituals around regret, such as journaling, meditation, or group reflection, can help us process difficult feelings and commit to change. These practices provide structure and support, making it easier to face our mistakes and learn from them. Over time, regular reflection on regret can build resilience and foster a culture of accountability and growth. Gratitude is more than just saying thank you. It's a practice that can improve mental health and strengthen relationships. Expressing appreciation counters the tendency toward criticism and helps us notice the good in our lives and in others. However, gratitude should be mutual and consensual, not just a one-way street. Recognizing the contributions of everyone, especially those often overlooked, builds a more inclusive and appreciative community. In expressing gratitude or appreciation, it's important to consider the why, what, when, where, and how. Appreciation should be genuine, freely given, and tailored to the recipient's preferences. Sometimes a simple message is enough, other times a more thoughtful gesture is appropriate. The goal is to build connection and mutual respect, not to fulfill social expectations or seek something in return. Vulnerability is about being open with our struggles, imperfections, and raw emotions. While culture often encourages us to hide our bad parts, opening up allows us to connect more deeply with others and with ourselves. Accepting our vulnerability means letting go of perfectionism and embracing the messiness of being human. This openness can foster stronger relationships and greater self-acceptance. Being open about our vulnerabilities isn't easy. Old habits of hiding, withdrawing, or blaming can be hard to break, but each time we choose to stay with our feelings and share them honestly, we take a step toward greater self-acceptance and connection. Over time, this practice can help us soften, open up, and build more authentic relationships. Life is full of uncertainty, and embracing it can be both challenging and liberating. Instead of rushing to resolve uncertainty or using it as an excuse to avoid commitment, we can learn to sit with it. This means taking time to listen to ourselves and others, refraining from quick fixes, and acting thoughtfully and compassionately. Embracing uncertainty is a courageous path that can lead to deeper understanding and more ethical choices. Facing uncertainty often means leaning into pain, looking directly at the things that make us feel vulnerable or ashamed. This process is hard, but it can bring relief and clarity. By understanding our habitual reactions and the fears that drive them, we can break free from unhelpful patterns and respond to life's challenges with greater wisdom and compassion. Many of us find ourselves repeating the same patterns, seeking approval, avoiding danger, or chasing success. Embracing uncertainty gives us a chance to step off these hamster wheels and forge new paths. By slowing down, reflecting, and leaning into discomfort, we can make more intentional choices and create lives that are more aligned with our values and desires.